Who would have thought that the man with a long history of criminality as relates to operating vehicles and consumption of alcohol and drugs would go on to commit a horrible crime that resulted in a woman being killed? Who would have thunk? Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler in my home office, and this is a story that many of you might not have heard about, despite the fact that it actually occurred in the free state of Florida. I love this state. I love it unequivocally, full stop. One thing about it, however, is that it is not safe for bike riding on the streets. I say this somewhat humorously, although it's not funny, between geriatrics who can barely see over the steering wheel and young people who drive like maniacs. Florida is simply not a safe place to be bike riding on the streets, despite the amount of bike lanes and shoulders that they have. When you are a bike, a small aluminum or titanium frame, if you're able to afford one, riding on the bike with massive vehicles driving at 60, 70 miles an hour, it's just not safe, despite how safe they try to make it. And if you had any doubts, just look at the statistics for the states that are the most dangerous for bike riding. From the AI overview, take it with a grain of salt, although I already knew that it was true. Florida is consistently ranked as the most dangerous state for bicyclists, particularly due to a combination of high population density, a large number of drivers who are unfamiliar with roads, like elderly drivers and tourists, high rates of distracted and impaired driving, and infrastructure that is, quote, dangerous by design, end quote. Louisiana, New Mexico, and South Carolina also frequently appear on lists of the most dangerous states based on cyclist fatality rates. So under normal circumstances, Florida is the most dangerous state to be a bicyclist on the road. Throw into that criminals who have multiple offenses as relates to consumption of alcohol, speeding, reckless driving, being let out on the streets to do it again, and you have situations like this, which doesn't seem to be making the news as much as it should be. From Tampa Bay Times, man arrested after fleeing fatal DUI crash in Gulfport, deputies say. He drove 8 blocks with the body on his windshield, according to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. A 22-year-old man faces DUI charges related to a Saturday night car crash in Gulfport where a woman died. Xavier Omar Rigsby was driving south on 49th Street, approaching 10th Avenue South at a, quote, high rate of speed, end quote, around 10 p.m. Saturday, according to a news release from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Kirsten Eileen Herman Strang, 38, was riding a bicycle in the right lane on 49th Street at the same time. Rigsby hit Strang with his car, the release said, ejecting her body from the bike onto his car. He drove about 8 blocks with Strang's body still on the windshield, deputies said. Now, I'm almost reluctant to make this observation because to some it might sound like I'm blaming the victim, which I am not, full stop. There are just certain things you can do to minimize your chances of getting hit by a vehicle, one of which is not driving at night. But set that aside. The dude hits the woman on her bike. He drives 8 blocks with her body on the hood of the car before fleeing the scene. Wait until we get to his criminal record history, but let's just carry on with the article. And before we carry on with the article, just for everyone out there, don't ride a bike at night unless it's absolutely necessary. Make sure that you're wearing a helmet and ride on the sidewalk. Don't ride on the streets anywhere, but especially in Florida. And now back to the criminality and the criminal with a long criminal history fleeing the scene of a crime. And where did they find him? That's right, at an alcohol store. Rigsby fled the crash without calling 911, the release said. Strang was pronounced dead on scene. Police found Rigsby at a liquor store about a mile south from the crash. He showed signs of impairment and refused to perform field sobriety tests, the release said. Rigsby was booked into the Pinellas County Jail on Sunday morning on 1 count of DUI manslaughter, 1 count of leaving the scene of a crash involving death, and 1 count of vehicular homicide, leaving the scene. Rigsby was arrested in September 2023 on DUI charges after officers stopped him for driving on the wrong side of the road. He admitted to drinking alcohol and smoking weed before driving, court records show. That is the article from the Tampa Bay Times. That's the extent of the coverage as far as I've seen, although we're only a few days out. A woman is dead. A 38-year-old mother is dead, having been hit by a man with a long history of alcohol-related driving crimes. She's now dead. He's now arrested for, I don't know, the umpteenth time. And what do we learn from all of this? It seems that if you're the authorities, very little. And here's a tweet from the Patriot Oasis breaking. Xavier Omar Rigsby, 22, drove 8 city blocks with a woman's body on the windshield after hitting her on a bike. Kirsten Eileen Herman Strang, 38, was killed. She was a mother. Rigsby had 9 prior traffic violations. There were signs. And here in the screen grab, you have previous traffic violations for Xavier Rigsby since April 27, 2020. Unlawful speed, 30 miles per hour and greater, speeding 6 to 9 over the limit, speeding 20 to 29 over the limit, leaving the scene of a crash involving property damage, no insurance, and that is September 27, 2022. Operating an unregistered motor vehicle, reckless driving when reduced from DUI, possession of marijuana, open container driver possession, driving the wrong side of the divided highway, speeding 6 to 9 over the limit. Some people might try to raise racialize this incident. I don't see that as being a factor yet. I see this as a problem of being soft on crime. Some people might try to politicize this. I don't know what the political leanings of Pinellas County is. All that I know is that a man who had 9 prior incidents, some of which were very serious, who still seemingly had a license, was back on the road, apparently inebriated, and now that I think about it out loud, he might have gone to the liquor store afterwards so that he could consume alcohol after the accident. It's called the bolus defense. So he could say, well, I wasn't drunk when it happened. I'm drunk now because after it happened, I had to go get alcohol because I was so distraught. So he can chug some alcohol after the incident in order to try to conceal the fact that he was under the influence during the incident. It's actually called the bolus defense. For those who don't know, Canada enacted a law that you could actually be found guilty of drunk driving if you are found to be intoxicated or over the limit within a certain period of time of having driven the vehicle. And so much so, by the way, that you could actually be at your own home, and if someone calls in and says, I saw him coming in drunk, and then they go ring your doorbell and you're under the influence, they can presume that you were driving under the influence because you were drunk afterwards. The bolus defense, it's literally something that exists under the law. AI overview, take it for what it's worth, but I know that it's true. The bolus defense, also known as bolus drinking, was a legal argument in impaired driving cases where a driver claimed their blood alcohol concentration, BAC, was below the legal limit at the time of driving, even if a later breath test showed they were over the limit. The argument was that they had consumed a large amount of alcohol just before or during driving, and the alcohol was still being absorbed into their bloodstream, so their BAC was not yet at its peak. However, this defense is largely irrelevant in Canada due to the, quote, 2-hour rule, end quote, which makes it an offense to have a BAC over the legal limit within 2 hours of driving, making the argument that alcohol was still being absorbed invalid. Yeah, I didn't actually think this vlog was somehow going to turn into a critique of Canada to highlight the insane laws in Canada, but everything eventually leads to showing how insane Canada has gone. All that to say, this is a terrible story, it's a tragedy, and it was a preventable tragedy if the law had been applied properly to the people who break the law. Now, with that said, if you're still watching this vlog and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, hit that notification button, do it. Because YouTube, or as I like to call it, CommieTube, is what it is. It doesn't even recommend my own videos to my own subscribers. The solution to that is Rumble, and the solution to that is also vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where you can support the work that we do. But hit that button, share, like, subscribe, you know what to do. But that is the tragic story coming out of Florida. It's not a safe place to ride bicycles on the street. Full stop, don't do it. Paths, fine. On the back of the Everglades where it's beautiful and scenic, fine. But on the roads, you are literally entrusting people on the streets, and there are lots of them behind the wheels of their vehicle to protect your life, and sometimes they drink, drive, and do terrible things, resulting in taking of innocent lives. With that said, don't let it deter you from getting exercise, because everyone needs to eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!